Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Tina here. Looks like I might have a technical problem. Oh, no. Hang on. Hi, everyone. No, I don't have a technical problem. Everything is fine. Thank you all for joining me today. I'm down in my basement because Delphi likes it in here, but she just got into the garden and is covered in dirt, so I had to throw her out. She's not happy about it, and I'm not happy about it. So we just had a little fluster of activity there before I started. So I'm just going to calm down because we had a little dog incident. Just want to announce to everyone, of course, that we have Salt Spring Retreat up and ready to book, and the Crete Retreat up and ready to book. And we do have one space left in Costa Rica if anyone wants it. And we do have one cancellation in the house set up on Crete. So if you wanted to come to Crete and you didn't want to stay somewhere else, there is one room for a shared female space. So let us see what Jesus has to say. I'm just going to have a quick sip of tea here. Cheers, with my Arizona mug. Let's see what Jesus has to say today. Hang on a second. I've got Wi-Fi pinging at me here, which I don't like. So sorry about that. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And of course, this dear one has been very busy, even though she has not been doing these live streamings. We keep her hopping with many aspects of the work. And so for all of you who at times reach some frustration with her, perhaps because something has been misnumbered or something has not arrived on time, or there is a technical difficulty that she is struggling with, we ask you all to be very patient, because this person has a lot of plates spinning on sticks, and sometimes those plates get quite wobbly and she has to run over and get one going again. She has a great support system developing, but there are times when a slight error is made. And for all of you, and this is meant to be sent to you in a most loving way, when this dear one makes a mistake, be aware that there are probably 30 or 40 people who have already told her that she has made a mistake. So do not feel necessarily that you have to leap in and point it out. She's usually very well aware of it very quickly from a tidal wave of notes from people all over the planet telling her that she has made a mistake. So we just ask you to consider that when you are interacting with her work. And so here we are, dear ones. You have had a month off from live streaming events, and we know that there are many energetic waves coming to the planet at this time. So you all have your work cut out for you. And remember, we have told you for many years that your preparations are necessary to weather the storms of increasing energies with grace and with love. And you are getting shown your shadows. That is what's happening right now for every single person on the planet, whether you be a country. For example, the United States is being shown her shadows. The European Union is being shown its shadows. Venezuela is being shown its shadows. Many places are being shown their shadows. Whatever was being maintained by frequencies is now evolved by higher frequencies. And it is important for you to understand that the same thing is happening in the micro as it is in the macro. You are being shown your shadows. This does not mean you're bad. This means that you are waking up. This is a very, very good thing. So for those of you that are struggling with recurring issues that you thought perhaps that you had dealt with, or upsets and worries that seem to be escalating, you are being given the opportunity to work with those difficulties in a focused way. And the energies of this awakening are going to support you in resolving those issues. Now, where many of you have difficulty is assuming that you have to stay in difficult circumstances, because that means that you're doing your forgiveness work. So we're going to address this here today. Because if you are, let us say, in a job that you do not like anymore, and you are feeling that it is getting worse and worse, this feeling of not wanting to be there, it is very easy for a Course in Miracles student or any spiritual student to assume that it is your problem and that you should tough it out, that you should override your guidance belief, that you should be stronger, that you should be better, that you should be more patient. And we want you to know that there is a process, there is a place for both of these experiences. There is a place for the experience of really digging deep and asking, what is really going on with me being in a job I don't like? Let me clear on my side of the street, let us say. Let me look and say, well, where was I energetically when I took this job on? Okay, it was 5 years ago, and I was a very different person then. I wasn't even doing A Course in Miracles. And at the time, I was very happy to have this job. I was very excited about it, challenging. Perhaps it was very well paid. Perhaps it was exciting in some way. You want to reflect back on where you were when you initiated that relationship with that particular job. Now, 5 years later, fast forward to today, and you see how much you've changed. You see how much more aware you are. You see perhaps even how much happier you are, how much more in alignment you are. We are surprised that you are also surprised that the job perhaps does not work for you anymore. But of course, because of the financial system in your world, there are mortgages that are arranged based on that job. There are family members who are orchestrated into particular activities based on that particular income, perhaps. And now getting out of this particular situation doesn't seem so easy. And it is not designed to be easy. We want to remind you of this. The systems of your world are designed to hook you into long-term commitments. That is what you're trained in. That is what you're encouraged to do. And that is what you're programmed to do. You're programmed to do all of those commitment things. And in your society, you are judged flighty or flaky if you do not meet your commitments. If you made marriage vows 32 years ago, you are expected to keep them. And you believe truly that you are faulty in some way because you no longer want to keep them. The system is designed to keep you from expansion. The system is designed to keep you from evolution. And so it's very important as we approach these big changes in your personal and public lives, it's very important that you understand this, because you do not really realize how much of your behavior is directed by conditioned teachings. We tell you this all the time. If you saw the depth and profundity and the number of teachings that you have been indoctrinated with over your lifetime, from birth to this day, you would be absolutely shocked at how much propaganda you have taken into your mind. And so as these energies escalate, it is so important for you to truly comprehend that there is nothing wrong with shifting and changing what you're doing, whether it be work, whether it be diet, whether it be exercise programs, whether it be family arrangements, whether it be getting rid of something or getting something. Some of you are going to want to get rid of responsibilities because you have taken on too many. Some of you are going to want to take on responsibilities because you have been running away from them. So there is no one size fits all. You must do a personal inventory of where you were. If you're really struggling with your current situation, you must take a fearless moral inventory of what got you into that place, how long ago, where you were, what you were looking for. You see, many of you were looking for financial security, or you were looking for predictability. You were looking to hide away from feelings and expansion and growth and creativity. You didn't want those things. You wanted a solid paycheck. You wanted a predictable life. You wanted to be able to buy something perhaps that was expensive, a car or a house. And so you took those positions on because that is what you wanted. And now, if you do not really analyze the situation carefully and intelligently and logically, you may develop a resentment for that job or that marriage or that mortgage. We want you to not do that, because you are actually just attacking something that you decided you wanted a few years ago. So that would be the forgiveness practice. Instead of saying, I must stay where I am, you say, I chose this particular configuration of material things, people, places, things, experiences. So I don't need to hate them. I don't need to resent them. I need to appreciate what they've given me. And we would suggest that you do that too. Appreciate, make a list of gratitude for what that job, person, place, or thing or experience has brought you. But if you truly feel that it is time for a change, that it is time for you to expand, that it's time for you to shift the chess pieces around on your chessboard, that you consider what those might be and what ones might be beneficial for you. Now, in changing the game, so to speak, if you envision a chessboard, we are not suggesting that you flip the board upside down, which is generally what those of you in particular situations, jobs, marriages, mortgages, these kinds of things, think about. You think about black and white thinking. You're either in or you're out. You're either married or you're not. You're either working at that job or you're not. But there are strategies to mitigate the issues that you are experiencing. If you are in a relationship and you feel imprisoned, then you are contributing your part to that imprisonment. Where are you not doing things that you want to do? Where are you fearful of expressing yourself? Those are the issues that you need to deal with in terms of going into the gray areas. Your relationship with whatever the subject is, house, mortgage, car, family, dog, horse, doesn't matter. Your relationship, if it is causing you upset or suffering, can be shifted by making a few changes and seeing how that goes. If you feel like you're imprisoned in a relationship, for example, you may start to change your behavior and say, well, on Tuesday nights, I'm not going to come home. I'm going to take a dance class. And your partner, who you have accused of being the prison keeper, may very well surprise you and say, oh, that's great. I wanted to go to a card game on Tuesday night, so that's perfect. Or I wanted to go to a card game on Friday and I wasn't going to go, but that's great. If we can both go out a little bit, your partner is probably feeling the same thing you are. But if you're terrified, if you're stuck in your shell, if you're stuck back 5, 10, 20 years ago with your behaviors, you are not going to know that. You are going to assume that the same thing is going to happen that happened 20 years ago. And we will say many of you are traumatized into restriction. And so in your school years or your family situation, you were punished for being yourself. You were punished for having joyful expression. And so you've learned to shut it down, but it's nothing to do with the other person that you're with. It's nothing to do with the job that you've got. That's just the vibration that you matched. And so it is the perfect place for you to see if you have increased your frequency. So as we go through these escalating energies, each of you, we'd like you to take a fearless moral inventory of where you are in your life, the bits that are working, the parts you like. And we would like you to now shine a spotlight on the parts that are not working, the parts that you don't like, the parts that drag you down, that make you suffer, that make you feel sad, that make you wish for something else. You are allowed to be happy. You are allowed to express yourself. You are allowed to have a life that reflects your current frequency. And in 10 years, you're allowed to change it again to the next frequency. And of course, if you are wise and intelligent and discerning, you will be constantly readjusting your direction based on how you are feeling and based on the increasing feedback that you are going to be getting from spirit, because we are going to be talking louder and louder and louder as the frequencies go up. Why? Because if the frequencies are going up, that means that your frequencies are going up and that you are getting closer and closer to our ability to connect with you. That is why more of you are channeling. That is why many of you are having Kundalini experiences now, because you are being raised up, because you are part of this group, because you have been doing A Course in Miracles, because you've been taking yourself out into the light, because you have been shutting off the TV. You are getting adjusted up, up, up to where natural communication with spirit can take place. What a wonderful, wonderful generation you have decided to be born into. You are so lucky to be here in physical form. Many in non-physical form are quite envious of you being able to experience this upgrade in the physical body. And so that is our little pep talk for today. We'd like you to do a fearless moral inventory of your current life, listing things like finances, love life, family and friends, travel, investments, whatever you consider an important aspect of your life, creativity, exercise, so many aspects of a beautiful human life. And we would ask you to circle 2 or 3 of those with which you are not particularly pleased, and now bring them onto the table, and out of those 2 or 3, decide which one's going to be your current project. Which one are you going to go into in a calm and considered way, and write down all the pros and cons, write down how you got there, write down what you've learned, write down what is now missing from that. Asking yourself, how can I add something without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which seems to be very, very distressing to everybody. And we understand that. But we have told you change is coming, imminent change, and whether or not you are ready for it, it's coming. We will take a short break. All right, I forgot to do my sound check. I really hope everybody's, oh yeah, there's no screams. I'm going to take a little sip of tea and then we'll get to our questions. Okay. Question for Lovestream. Oh, that's funny how he talked to you about my mistakes. Question for Lovestream. We are told, and it feels like to me, that beings of high frequency from other planets are around to help us raise our frequency and move out of the 3D matrix. Why do they bother? Given that they are more evolved than us, why do they want to spend time changing the illusion we are in? According to A Course in Miracles, it seems to me that what we do or do not do does not matter anyway. Does A Course in Miracles not tell us that all is an inside job anyway? Feeling a bit confused about this, at the same time, I appreciate all the help that our collective can get, both externally and internally. Are our galactic brothers and sisters a reflection of our own inner work? That's from Ingrid. Let's see what Ananda has to say about that. We're with you again, dear ones. And as always, we thank you for dragging your little bodies to your computers and coming together with us at this time, and with Jesus and with our dear one. You are blessed beings indeed, and we are seeing magnificent shifts and changes around your planet. There are revolutions afoot. Not all of you are aware of this, but there are physical revolutions happening in many countries around the world, where large numbers of people are in fact saying enough is enough. And this is a physical manifestation of many years of spiritual work. People do not run out onto the streets with placards until they have reached the end of their limit. They are overriding their teachings in your society to be quiet, behave, stay home, do as you're told, go to work, buy things. That's everyone's training in the West. And if you are seeing thousands and thousands of people out in the streets, you know that it has taken some time for their experience to get bad enough that they are now stepping out of the front door, gathering together, organizing themselves and saying, we're not doing this anymore. And this is one of the things that is going to cause great change on your planet. When the masses stand up and say enough is enough, the system will stop working, because it's only working because of all the beings that are cooperating. They are cooperating because they were trained to cooperate with the system, and you get punished if you don't cooperate with the system. But there comes a point when everybody wants to break free. And many, many beings on your planet have reached that point and are reaching that point. So for those of you that are disillusioned about this experience here and think, oh, those people who are living in big cities, all those people who are driving to work, they're not going out into the country, you are going to be quite pleased over the next few years, because you are going to see urban dwellers rising up in great numbers saying, we're not going to do this anymore. This is unacceptable. There is so much wealth on this planet. There is so much money being generated. There's so much abundance. Where is it? Who's got it? Now, as Course in Miracles students, of course, we don't want you to get down about this, but it's okay to get excited about life. It's okay to enjoy the journey. It's okay to be enthusiastic about changes that are good. Just as when you decide that you're going to upgrade your diet, for example, you may look at your physical body and say, enough is enough of this. I'm not getting the results that I want. I do not see a body that is healthy. I do not see a body that's strong. I see a body that's probably going to get sick if I keep doing what I'm doing. Is it wrong to start a revolution in that circumstance? Of course not. But you are not going to achieve it instantaneously. You are going to sit with that desire for a while. You're going to continue to watch what we will say is the negative thing happening. And at some point, you will throw your donuts down and you will put your running shoes on and you will walk around the block and say, enough is enough. I can't keep doing this. Again, we want to caution Course in Miracles students not to fear action. This is something that has been a little distorted in the interpretation of these teachings. We are speaking about inspired action. We do not want you to be productive by rote. We don't want you to be acting upon automatic systems or unconscious systems, but inspired action, creative action, absolutely, it's a wonderful thing to see. And it is a wonderful thing to feel, from our point of view, the energies of optimism and belief shifting and changing on your planet. That is what is happening. And we remind you once again not to be frightened by these changes. You are seeing a corrupt and poisonous, out of balance system being taken down by love. So to the question, why bother? Well, there is this idea that extraterrestrial beings are, of course, in a different dimension than you. Some are. Some of the high frequency beings really have nothing to do with the physical material world. But many extraterrestrial beings live in the dualistic world in which you live, but they have not been intentionally programmed into the lower frequencies of the 3D world. They have moved up into a more loving and a more conscious expression of separation, perhaps what you would call 5D. That is what your planet is heading to. It is going up, 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 out of the lower realms of 3D. Most of you now are about 3/4 of the way up the 75% of the way up the 3D scale. 50 years ago, you were at around 50%. Now that 25% may not seem like much, but you are heading towards love. That is what the fourth dimension is. It is where love begins to transform everything. And the fifth dimensional reality that comes from journeying up out of 3D through the heart, through forgiveness, through compassion, through loving kindness, through practicing those things will manifest in from 4D up into 5D, and you will bring into being a different world. It will still be a world where there are seeming bodies. It will still be a world where there is a seeming experience of separation happening, but it will not be a deeply distorted and suffering-inducing experience as this last little while on your planet has been. So we want you to know that you should be excited. We want you to know that you should be grateful that there are beings who care about you. Now, why do they do it? They do it for the same reason that you pick up an injured puppy on the side of the road. We know that we have spoken these words before, but why would you pick a puppy up on the side of the road? Because you're kind, because you're evolved, because you're conscious, because you know that beings who are suffering need help. And we repeat our commentary so that you understand that it's okay to be a revolutionary in that sense. It's okay to say enough is enough. I'm not doing this anymore. How am I contributing to all the bad stuff? I'm not going to do it anymore. But you also want to maintain your frequency. And for the being that asked this particular question, that is one of her issues. How do you become a revolutionary and not get disillusioned or angry? Well, sometimes there are energies that need to express because they've not been being expressed. And if you look at a revolution on the ground, if you look at the people in France, for example, who are on the streets because they've had enough of the government's shenanigans, they are expressing what you might consider an unloving energy. But it is because they have been controlling and repressing and behaving themselves for such a long time that the energy wants to come out in a very, very big transformative tidal wave. That is a consequence, not of them being good or bad, but a consequence of them having contained themselves for such a long time because of their programs. So we speak often about using your free will appropriately. To use your free will appropriately, the first thing you have to do is ask yourself, where am I inappropriately using my own free will? Am I doing things that are not good for the planet? Am I doing things that are not good for me? Am I doing things that are not good for my society? Where am I doing these things? Can I change my behavior based on this now self-realization that we are all contributing to this behavior pattern? It's a behavior pattern, and now you're beginning to see behavior patterns changing. Now, it is going to get quite chaotic on your planet as the old systems begin to shudder and wave in the breeze of revolution. But we would like you to focus on your practice, your program, your frequency. Yes, you can gaze out at the effects of the internal changes that are precipitating these revolutions, but be aware of what you are looking at. You are looking at behavior, which comes from feelings. Feelings come from thoughts. Thoughts come from beliefs. There has been a profound internal process before the people hit the streets. The hitting the streets is the end result of a lot of internal processing. So the same applies for you. If you are involved in this modern Western society, if you're involved in the systems, do the internal work before you change the behaviors, because you can't change the behaviors unless you change the beliefs inside of you that are going to maintain those behaviors. Remember, if you want long-term change, your behaviors must be based on internal shifts that are solidified and stable within yourself. So that is the process that many of you are on this plane. And that is the process that many of you, the higher frequency extraterrestrial beings that are communicating with those of you that have tuned your frequencies, they are assisting in helping those beings solidify their internal changes so that they may be a beacon for those of you that are perhaps less stable. And so it is not about being better than, it is not about some of you having skills that others don't have. It is about some of you being a little further ahead in the grading system. You've learned a bit more. And there comes a point for those of you that become stable in your new behaviors, thoughts, and ideas. There comes a point when you get the feeling, I need to share this with people. People need to know that they can do this. They don't need to suffer. And that is a natural progression. If you're not there yet, don't worry about it. You're still working on your stuff. You must understand that you must clarify a lot of your own internal workings before you can stand and call others to you and say, this is how I did it. Most of you are sort of in the, I've half done it. I feel like I'm straddling two worlds here. I'm not stable at all. And so this goes to one of your other questions is, do you feel like you're riding two horses? Well, of course you do. You are going from one complete thought system, the ego's thought system and the value system of your world, and you are going into another love-based thought system, which has its own integrity. So just as the system that you've been trained into has its own integrity, that means you have to have a bank account for you to cash your paycheck. You have to have a job before you can rent a house. You have to have a house and a job and a bank account before you can buy a car. You have to have all of those things before the bank will give you a credit card. It is an integrated system, and it's very difficult to maneuver within the system. Any of you who've tried to buck the system will know it's almost impossible. It's designed to be that multifaceted, imprisoning system. It's a complete thought system. And this is why you get so tired in it, because if you try and battle within the thought system, you will wear yourself out. You must rise above that thought system. And that does not mean that you go to an ashram necessarily. It does not mean that you do not make your posts on Facebook for whatever subject you'd like people to learn more about. But you must have an ease about it that says, this is not my job to convert this world. My job is my practice. My practice will take me above the battleground. Once I'm above the battleground and I'm calm and stable in my practice, then I will become a beacon for many other beings. But I must get there first. You must climb up the ladder out of the sewers into the sunlight. And that is what this program and this process and this support group and these teachings are about. And for those of you that have been in these teachings for a few years and are now seeing how you contribute to your own suffering, you still have, relatively speaking, quite a lot of work to do, where you are seeing that you are contributing to your suffering, whereas 3 or 4 years ago, before you started the course, you did not see that. You thought it was everybody else's fault. You thought it was your boss's fault or your boyfriend's fault. So the extraterrestrial beings that are assisting you love you as you would a stray puppy. They love you and want to help you find a home that's happy and healthy as you would a stray puppy. That is what you do. If you take a puppy home, you do not just keep it for one day. You brush it and clean it and feed it and love it and cuddle it. Decide if you can be the one that helps it. And if you can't, then you will find it a home. It's a process. And it's a process for the extraterrestrial beings who are helping you on your planet at this time. There are some that are deeply involved on the planet and in the planet. There are some who are in the relative world with you that are lower frequency, but you do not need to worry about them because they will not meet you if you have a high frequency. You will not be affected by their practice. As beings of low frequency in your life, humans, let's say, who are low frequency, who matched you 5, 10 years ago, they are going to drift out of your life. You're going to get a job offer somewhere else and you'll move away. They are going to get married and move to another town. They are going to stop calling you. They are not going to be drawn to you anymore. You are not going to be drawn to them anymore. So we want you to get yourself above the battleground. We want you to practice your practice. We want you to connect with extraterrestrials that you feel drawn to. Educate yourself about those subjects if you feel drawn to them. If you don't feel drawn to them, don't worry about it. That's not your subject. Your subject may be creativity. Your subject may be writing. Your subject may be dance. Your subject may be politics. Follow your passions, follow your heart, and you will be guided. We will take a short break and return. Okay, everyone, I have to go deal with my dog, so please, just a minute. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. She's full of beans, that girl. Okay, a little sip of tea. Oh, okay. Question for Lovestream. I don't know if this has been discussed already. I would like to know what Jesus or Ananda has to say about the new earth, and is it the same place which Jesus told us to meditate on 11/11? I heard somewhere else that we should start grounding ourselves to the new earth while meditating and not grounding to earth while we're doing it. This should make the transition for us easier. Is it so? Will Earth continue to be a plane of duality even in 5D? Oh, I think he actually did just cover that. Let's just ask Jesus, though, about the new Earth. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And we have indeed covered some of these subjects before, but as new questions arise, it's okay to revisit everything. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to repeat things sometimes, because if you didn't hear the original and it's way back in the archives, somebody else may not have heard it. You are actually going through a period of great spiritual evolution. And you are going to experience a transformation of your planet and its experience that is quite exceptional. Now, because it is the end of a spiritual season, because it is the end of a grand cycle, those of you that live on this planet have never experienced that before. You have never gone through that before. If you're 30 or 40 years old, you have not got any idea. Excuse me. It's a small house, sorry. We are here with you again. It's okay. This dear one has got her hand full with her big puppy, and we ask for your forgiveness on her behalf. She is a little stressed about the situation. Your Earth is going through a massive shift in consciousness. Many other planets in your galaxy have gone through this, and the cultures and beings on those planets must travel with the planet if they so wish. If they get their frequencies to such a point where they can go through that consciousness evolution with their planet, they will go on that journey. And so that's what's happening here. Your planet, as we have told you before, is a sentient being. You see your bodies as the vessel, the container of your consciousness. And you look around and you see creatures, horses, dogs, cats, birds, and you think, wow, they have a physical vehicle that is the container of their consciousness. It's bird consciousness or Delphi consciousness. It has its own journey. The earth is a physical body that contains a consciousness. But you have, in your scientific method, been trained away from seeing her in that way. She is on her own journey and goes through her own cycles and her own expansion and expression. And she has, through her great loving kindness, been the home for many species for a very, very long time, far longer than you know. And she is willing to slow down her process so that you can come along. So that's what's happening. And we want you to not be overly concerned about the physical shifts and changes that are going to be brought about by your planet's shift in consciousness, because your egos will get triggered. You will be trying to figure out, will I be able to keep my job? Will I be able to keep my house? Am I going to get flooded? Will I have to migrate? Am I going to become a refugee? Should I go and live on the top of a mountain? This is what the ego mind will do, dear ones, if we go into too much detail about the physical shifts and changes that are going to take place. So we want you to concentrate on the consciousness shifts and the frequency shifts that you are going to go through, because that is what will guarantee a pleasant outcome for your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual experience. You can look around your earth and you can see many unpleasant things. You can see poverty, you can see disease, you can see all kinds of things, death, destruction. And you are well educated enough now to know that that is a frequency. That is the end result of a lot of thinking, the end result of a lot of fear. So you want to really get it deeply ingrained in your mind that changing the physical, moving, hiding from tidal waves, or whatever your particular series of nightmares is, your ego will bring up its own series of nightmares for you. It could be financial fear. It could be all kinds of things. But if you go into those fears and try and mitigate those fears, you are going to be strengthening the ego. You want to listen to the ego's story that tells you you should dig a bunker or that you should go and live in a cabin in the woods out of fear. And you can say to it, look, everything's going to be fine. I'm doing my spiritual work. I am raising my frequency. I am doing what it is I need to do. And I know, because I truly believe in these teachings, that I'm going to end up exactly where I need to end up. And any fear is only the fear of death, and death is not real. I have been told it. I believe it. I'm acting as if it's true. And so if there is any kind of transition that I must go through, it is going to be beneficial to me in the long run. So that is really how we want you to look at the answer to this question. We want you to know that, yes, there's a massive spiritual evolution happening to your planet. She has agreed to go slowly so that those of you that wish to go with her can go with her. And that really is what you need to focus on. And these teachings direct you and instruct you specifically in how to do that. We will speak to you again shortly. Okay. All righty. Okay, the next question. How would Ananda define the term light worker? I know they don't really use it much, if at all, but it's used a lot to refer to those of us who follow this kind of New Age path. And I would like to know more about the characteristics of light workers as seen from the non-physical. Okay, that's a lovely question. Okay, let's see what Ananda has to say. We're with you again, dear ones. You are all light workers. It is not a particular phrase that we have used, but that is okay. There are languages that are used in different facets and aspects of your society. Light is love. Light is language and intelligence coming to your planet, streaming to your planet from that which you would call the sun. But it is a physical demonstration in real terms of that which you would call God, the light that gives life. And so those of you that are shifting and changing your consciousness, and therefore your bodies and therefore your lives, are removing that which blocks the light. And that is why you are called light workers. And you may be facilitating other beings, removing the blocks within their consciousness that create the shadows that represent the lack of light, the lack of love. And that is really the simplest way to envision what you're doing. There are all kinds of complications that come into the separated mind. There are crystals and herbal remedies and yoga poses and mudras and retreats and all kinds of things that are used in various combinations to remove the blocks to love's awareness in your mind, to remove the shadows that manifest as fears or sicknesses or limitations in your life. But if you look at it as light shining and things obscuring that light, love, intelligence, you can use those words interchangeably, love, light, intelligence. Whatever is making the shadow has to be removed. The shadow in and of itself is not real. And this is something that's very good for you to think of in visual terms as you are going through your practice. If you are in a relationship with somebody who is mean to you or hateful to you, instead of looking at them as the issue, you look at them and you say, there's a shadow there. The love, the light, the intelligence is being blocked. Is there some way that I can add more light to the situation? Now, we will refer to the individual will of all the beings involved in this exploration of light and love and shadows. That's what your world is exploring. It is not up to you to fix anybody else. It is up to you to accept the atonement for yourself. It is up to you to accept love and light and intelligence in your own consciousness, remove the blocks to love's presence and awareness in your own mind, and then shine that light for all. The sun does not pick and choose who he shines upon. He shines upon the happy, the sad. He shines upon the kind and the cruel. He shines his light on everyone. And that really is a great model to emulate. Shine your light on everyone. But first, to shine your light, you must remove the blocks within your own consciousness that create your own shadows. And for many of you, you are coming to the point where you are beginning to realize that you spend a lot of time trying to remove the shadows from other people's lives, and you haven't spent enough time removing the shadows from your own mind. And this, again, will become more and more apparent as the energies increase. Your shadows will become more clearly, they become more distinct, more clearly delineated. Because whatever you have not yet dealt with is going to arise. So some of you who call yourself light workers may feel very shadowy over the next little while. And we want you to understand that that's okay. You want to see your shadows. You want to see the things in your consciousness that block you from the light. It might be an addiction. It may be that you are using a drug or alcohol to hide your shadows from yourself. And you may get the overwhelming urge to clean up your intake of substances. That may be the way that the increasing frequencies make you better. You may have a codependency with a family member or a partner. You may have fear of getting involved with somebody. It does not matter what the actual form is. Remember, form is very, very deceptive. It is, what is the underlying feeling? What is going on beneath the surface? Is it a happy, joyful, loving feeling? Or is it a resentful, guilty, shameful feeling? You will know, and nobody can tell you. So we want you to see this personal work as you being a light worker. Even if you are in the doldrums or sad right now, you can still say, I'm a light worker. I'm working on increasing my light. Why is that a word that we have not used? No particular reason. We come with this being's vocabulary to work with, and that is not a word that she uses very much. And so it tends not to be a word that we select from her consciousness very much. Obviously, she knows what it means. She hears other people use it, but her training is the training of non-duality through A Course in Miracles. And so that is the language that we generally use. We will return shortly. Blame me. That's my vocabulary. Okay, I'm going to have a little sip of tea here. Just take a moment. If I get going too fast, I get a bit out of breath. All right. Hi, everyone. I have a question for the next love stream about judgment versus discernment. I seem to be having plenty of my own being flushed up of late to be looked at and released. I would, though, like to hear Jesus or Ananda speak on this. I was recently triggered by a comment made by another well-loved spiritual teacher of the Way of Mastery, who called it discernment to share what he feels are flaws in Ken Wapnick's teachings, and some comment that Gary Renard made once to get his message across. Is it not better to share what speaks as truth to us without criticizing another for their perception or approach? Is it not better to share what speaks as truth to us without criticizing another for their perception or approach? Thank you. Very good question. Let's see what Jesus has to say about judgment and discernment and criticizing spiritual teachers. Okay. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And of course, when you are in a place of public performance, let us say you have a big audience and you have the ability to express yourself in a loving way or in an unloving way. It is important for everyone to understand that whoever is on the stage, and this one is, of course, a being who is on the stage at quite frequently, we will say, and she is not perfect. Anyone who knows her knows that she is not perfect. She has the issues that she's working on, the shadows in her mind that she is working to release from her mind. And so when those things are activated, words or behaviors, feelings may come through her that are not perfect. And we would caution you all not to expect perfection of anybody who's in the public eye, merely to observe what they bring up in you, because that is your job. We will tell you, for beings in your society right now, it takes great courage to put themselves out on the YouTube channels and on the stages at doing speeches or retreats, laying themselves out for all of you to see all of their character flaws, traits, beauties, whatever it is they bring to the stage. And we would like you to have compassion for them in their imperfection. Are you on the stage, bearing your soul for people? Are you writing? Are you performing? Or are you sitting back, judging? The negative feeling that you got from that person's comment was for you to look at. It is not about them. What did it bring up in you? The belief that they should be perfect and never ever say anything about anybody? Well, perhaps that is an ideal. Perhaps that is something that you can aim for. Perhaps it's something for you to look at. Perhaps it is important for you to see where you say things about other people. That is exactly what it was for. It was not about the beings that you are watching out there and their lessons. It is about your lesson. It brought a trigger up in you because it's something that you need to work on. So for all of you that see people on stages, whether they be dancers and you think they're a little bit too fat for that outfit, or they be actors and you think, well, they should get some plastic surgery if they want to keep doing that job, or if it's a newscaster or a channeler or an artist and you don't like their work, put that mirror up between you and them and ask yourself, what am I doing? Am I on a stage? Am I being creative? Am I being courageous? Or am I merely an armchair quarterback? We will return shortly. Ooh. That was a short answer. So just as a note for those of you that may have posed questions that I don't see, if they come up on the private Facebook page and I see them, I copy and paste them to a Word document and I continue adding onto that Word document until I have about 8 or 9 questions. So some of these that were dealt with earlier are from last month when somebody asked them. And then generally when I see that we have enough questions, I'll make a post on the private Facebook page. We're kind of full for now, so maybe hold your question until the next one, because if they keep getting posed and I'm not doing a session for a couple of weeks, they may get missed. So it's better to wait until you get the email, you find out what day we're going to have our session, and then I'm on the lookout for questions. So that's the best way to do it. Next question, we'll do this one for Ananda. Could Jesus or Ananda please elaborate on the topic of discipline? Yes, doing the Course in Miracles lessons is a form of discipline and a huge blessing. However, in other areas of my life, I'm not sure if discipline and pushing through resistance is not the old paradigm of doing things. When is discipline well advised and when is it not? Excuse me. When is it loving and when is it unloving? Some real life examples would be very helpful. Thank you so much. Let's ask Ananda about discipline. We're with you again, dear ones. This is a very, very good question. And there are many, many practices on your planet that bring freedom through discipline. Course in Miracles is one of them. You understand that your mind is not trained in accord with those teachings, and it requires a lot of effort in the beginning to get your mind in accord with those teachings and to pay attention and to repeat the lessons. It's a very, very good example of discipline at play. But what's underlying your study? A great desire to change. That is what is underlying your study of A Course in Miracles lessons. If you did not want to change, you wouldn't do the lessons. You wouldn't have any desire to exert that mental discipline. You would say, I'm fine, Jack. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm okay. It is through your experience of wanting change, wanting transformation, that you are able to apply the discipline. So what you have is what you would consider, let's say, a dysfunctional behavior of some kind. Monkey mind, for example, chaotic life, all kinds of negativities swamping you in your life. and this teaching comes along and somebody says this can change your life, and you look at your life and you say, well, that is necessary right now. I need to change my life. And so you become willing to attempt exerting the discipline. So if you are pushing through resistance, as this question asker says, are you pushing through resistance from unsatisfactory habits that you no longer want, and therefore you are having to exert that discipline? Or are you pushing through a natural resistance to something that you don't want to actually do, that you are not in alignment with? So, for example, if you are going to university, you may have a dream of becoming a doctor. That may be something in this lifetime that you would like to accomplish. And so you have all of these exams, you have these thick books that you have to memorize, and you have to work very, very hard. There is no way that somebody who doesn't want to be a doctor is going to go through that discipline. Now, there may be good ways of going through that discipline and bad ways of going through that discipline. There could be the person who never studies for exams, and then 3 or 4 days before a major exam drinks coffee and uppers all night long and crams for that exam and causes themselves physical harm. That would be the kind of behavior that we would consider pushing through the old unhealthy way. If, however, you are in balance and you are experiencing that you are expressing a higher frequency, you will say, I want to be a doctor. That is something that is front and center in my mind all the time. I'm going to go to medical school. But if you are balanced and healthy and not in the lower frequencies, you will begin on day one studying. You will begin on day one by saying, oh, well, okay, I've been studying for 3 hours now. My body needs to move. I'm going to go to the gym for a little while and get some exercise, but I'm going to come back to study after that. You may interview some doctors, find out which specialty you might be interested in. You might be using a multifaceted way of getting through the slog, so to speak, of medical school. Very, very different way of approaching it. And the form would be the same. I'm going to become a doctor. But the actual frequencies of those two different approaches are going to bring a different result. The person who is cramming and taking caffeine and drinking too much, ignoring their studies, getting behind, they're going to have a very stressful and unpleasant experience. But the person who's in alignment and knows why they are guided to do this work will have a much more pleasant experience. They may come to the same result at the end of 4 or 6 or 8 years and be a qualified doctor, but odds are they'll be a lot happier and healthier. So you really want to look at why you have decided a discipline is necessary. Are you particularly undisciplined in an area of your life and you are seeing that it is causing problems? Then you are motivated to shift and change your behavior. But you must go into the level of mind first and discern why you are doing that. I'm going to give you another example. If you were sexually assaulted as a child or a young person, and you were assaulted by a family member, let's say somebody in your household, and they found you very attractive or beautiful, and you deemed that to be what caused the assault, you may very well try to make yourself unattractive as a coping mechanism as a child or a young teen, preteen, because this is often where those things happen. You may have decided that if you are not attractive, then you will be safer. And odds are, in fact, that is quite an adaptive behavior in your society. If, however, now at 25 or 35 years old, that degree of unattractiveness is making you lonely, you'd like a partner, perhaps you'd like to have children, you are going to want to discipline yourself into becoming more attractive to improve your appearance. But if you do not go into the mind and deal with the trauma that induced the behavior in that younger you to start with, you may have a great deal of difficulty, even with exerting discipline, to change your physical appearance, because your ego mind has for years and years and years practiced certain behaviors to keep you unattractive, to keep you safe. So in that circumstance, you are going to witness failure. The behavior cannot be maintained because the mind has not been changed. It doesn't matter if you are exerting discipline. You are, in fact, battling against yourself. The conscious part of your mind says, I am going to do these things to make myself more appealing. And the unconscious mind is saying, don't make yourself attractive. It is dangerous. So if you study the mind and go through the Course in Miracles lessons, these are some of the things that you may discover that you are doing. These will not all be revealed to you while you're doing the lessons. Remember, the lessons are the clarification process. They are a training program. As you continue to practice the lessons throughout your life, you are going to, on a regular basis, encounter things that perhaps did not come up during the lessons. Perhaps there are more deeply seated beliefs and ideas that come to you many years after doing A Course in Miracles. And that is because you were not ready for them earlier on. Spirit loves you very much, and we are very, very aware of how frightened humans can become, how defensive humans can become, how violent or attacking humans can become if their ego defenses are activated. And so over time, you will have more and more and more revealed to you. And it's very important for those of you that are still doing the lessons not to have such high expectations of your behaviors, because you are merely at this stage, if you are still doing the lessons, you are merely having your mind reveal to you. Yes, you are clarifying some things. Yes, you are focusing on more loving thoughts and ideas. Yes, you are disciplining yourself to some degree. But you are still being shown the inner workings. You are still being helped up off the ground, so to speak, into a standing position where you can deal with things better. Many of you come to A Course in Miracles when you are literally or figuratively on your knees. And that is not a good place to deal with things on your knees. Surrender is a good thing, yes, indeed. But to actually deal with your life, to make the changes that are necessary for you to be happy, for you to function properly in a physical body, being on your knees in a terrible state is not a good place to do it. So for those of you that are doing the lessons, do the lessons. Make that your discipline right now. Do not add multiples of other disciplines. A Course in Miracles lessons are the most powerful mind-changing program available to you at this moment. And we would suggest that it is enough for most of you. So in terms of discipline, make sure that you go beneath the form and ask yourself, what is actually going on in my mind with this thing that I want to change? I must change my mind first so that I am not battling conscious mind against unconscious mind. We will give you another example. Somebody who is anorexic is a very good example of somebody whose mind, through discipline, distorted discipline, is killing their body. Now, that being who has anorexia nervosa has such a distortion going on in their mind. The ego has completely taken over. There is no balance, and discipline is exerted to a lethal degree. So this is a good example for you to say, discipline in and of itself is not always good. Just like food in and of itself is not always good for you. You must use discernment here, and you must go beneath the form and ask, what's the feeling? Am I afraid of something? Am I terrified inside? Is that why I'm exerting this force of discipline? Discipline should be a conscious choice employed to bring you expansion of some kind, not control. That is your clue that the ego is at play. We will return shortly. All right. Have another sip of tea. Good one. Can Jesus or Ananda speak to us about what we know as the death process and what happens during, as well as what we can do to be of help to loved ones who have transitioned? What's it like to die? Well, of course, they did a whole book on that, which was Great Minds Speak to You. That was a book that you should read if you haven't yet read it. If you're curious about the death process, there's a lot of different descriptions in there from different people. But let's see what Jesus has to say. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And of course, the last thing that shall be overcome is death. And that is indeed so. It is something that is not real. You do not have to die in the way that you do in this society. The way you die in this society is a reflection of the frequency of this society. There are beings, even on your planet at this time, that come in and out of the body quite easily and frequently. Many Eastern master teachers, they are not performing on your television, so you don't see them. They are in temples and they are in ashrams and they are living very simple lives, but their consciousness is mastered to such a degree that they can, in fact, bilocate. That means that they can produce a second body in another location while the body in which they seem to be meditating is resting in a meditative state. They can indeed choose when to leave the body permanently because their consciousness comes in and out of the body all the time during their lifetime. When they feel that their work is done, when they connect with non-physical teachers that they have, they will be informed that their time in the physical is done at times. Not always, but sometimes we will inform somebody. If they are masters of their own consciousness, we will say, it is time for you to come home. And they will say, okay, well, I'll tell everyone I'm going, and on Wednesday afternoon, I'll meet you and I will come home. Believe it or not, that is what some beings on your planet are capable of doing. Some very famous ones have done that. So the death process will depend on your frequency. It is not the same for everybody. So that is the first thing that we want to tell you. Your death process depends on your frequency. So how do we tell you about the 7 billion ways that each of you on this planet are going to pass over? That is why a book was written about that subject, so that you could see the difference between different beings. Some beings who have children and who are leaving their children early on in the life get a difficult time traveling over into the in-between lifetime, if you will. There's another lifetime after this lifetime where you assess and reassess what you've done and what you want to do in the future. Sometimes that decision to leave children is a very, very difficult one, but that is something that is decided beforehand. Now, the person who is going through the death process, let's say a mother has 2 children and she has cancer and she is dying. She is not going to make it. As that ego personality, she may or may not come to a place of acceptance about leaving her children. If she is not in a place of acceptance, the ego is going to hold on a lot longer than if she is in a place of acceptance. If she has gone through a spiritual growth spurt because of the disease, if she's gone inside and she has connected to that which you call God, if you will, or me, that person may be quite willing to experience the experience without resistance, and that is going to be a lot easier. So first of all, we would say for you For those of you that have fear about the death process, we would like you to investigate those fears. What are those fears? What are the stories that your ego is telling you about dying? Most of you are incorrect about what that process is. We will only go into it superficially here because, as we have said, a book was written about that whole journey. So the being who is resistant will hang around longer and may very well have a much more painful experience because they are, as our dear one calls it, white knuckling, holding on for dear life. That's a very interesting phrase to use at this time. The person who is willing, who is surrendered to the process, may pass easily and quickly, surprisingly so, for those who are observing the process. Now, as you know, we speak about your blueprint often, and in your blueprint, you will decide often in advance when and where and how you will pass over, because it is a powerful tool for growth for many of the observers. So if you think about it, if you could pass away quietly in your bed, nobody learns anything from it, they just find you the next morning, oh, she's gone. Or if you could join in with other beings and perhaps die in a more dramatic way that gets the attention of your society, perhaps around a subject that needs to be addressed, in spirit, you may very well say, oh, I'll go for the more dramatic one. If a bunch of us get together and we can have an effect on a society, what a great way to use my passing rather than it slipping under the radar, undetected. And many of you do that. Many of you will collaborate to leave at a certain time together so that you make an impact. Now, the death process itself is like walking from one room into the other. There are doorways from one level of consciousness, if you will, into others. And just as you walk from your living room into your kitchen, you're going to the kitchen because there's something you want in the kitchen, a cup of tea perhaps, or a drink of water or something to eat. You don't lament leaving the living room when you want to go into the kitchen. And we would like you to think about death this way. If you are informed of your imminent death, if you get a clue that you are not going to be here much longer, we would like you to perhaps not white knuckle it. Perhaps it is okay for you to say, well, it's time to leave the living room. I'm going to go into the kitchen. I'm sure there's something really interesting there. Some of you may wish to consider that. Some of you may not. Some of you may not have enough faith in the process of passing over and enough education as to how to interpret that journey for you to leave willingly. Some of you have beings you don't want to leave behind, and so you are holding on for dear life. We would never tell anybody what to do with that experience. It is completely up to you. You will have your own guidance. You will have your own communications from your guides and teachers. You will have your own needs and wants. You will have your own balance between egos and spirits, desires for you. Many of you forget, however, that you are eternal spiritual beings. You think you are just bodies. And so the thought of losing your body terrifies you, and the ego is in charge, and you will hold on and do anything you can to stay alive. And that is okay. You never will be punished for trying to stay alive. You never will be punished for eagerly leaving this body-mind in which you find yourself. There are 7 billion different pathways coming to those of you in separation. You will each choose your own path out of this particular experience. But that is all it is. It is an experience. Your consciousness was before this body, and your consciousness will be after this body has departed. And you will be welcomed with loving arms by many, many teachers, family members, and friends who have gone on before you. I'm that one that you know as Jesus. And we will speak to you again soon. It's very serious there. Okay, let's do one more. Question for live stream. The Arcturians in number 5 of the Sedona transmission say that the body is manufactured by spirit. Yet the Course states in lesson 72, the ego's fundamental wish is to replace God. In fact, the ego is the physical embodiment of that wish. For it is that wish that seems to surround the mind with the body, keeping it separate and alone and unable to reach other minds, except through the body that was made to imprison it. Would Jesus or Ananda please clarify? Let's see what Ananda says. We're with you again, dear ones. These principles are at times paradoxically contradictory. There are relative experiences and there are absolute experiences. Absolute experiences are very different than relative experiences. Above the battleground experiences are very different than in the battleground experiences. What we want you to know is that you are a very powerful creator. If your spirit was not involved in the manufacture of your body, it would not be alive. That is really the fundamental issue here. It does not mean that bodies are good or bad. Bodies are indifferent. It is the intention and energy and frequency that inhabits the body and decides what that body is going to do that gives it volition. So yes, the separated part of your consciousness decided that it wanted to have this experience of not love, the detour into fear, as A Course in Miracles calls it, and it manufactured a body in which to have that experience. Most of you that have come to A Course in Miracles are tired of that experience of separation. You want a more loving experience once again, and you are going to revert back to that reunified consciousness. So it is not a black and white issue. It is a matter of your creativity manufacturing something that you wanted to experience. And now it is a matter of your experience pushing you towards through a discipline that is going to take you back into a more unified place, an ebb and flow, if you will. And there comes a point when you have ebbed and flowed into an outer physical experience enough times that you have decided that you don't need to do that anymore, and you have given up all of the idols that you used to worship. So it is important for you not to judge this as an absolute experience. The separation experience down into the battleground, down into physical separation, is a relative experience that is going to bring you certain things. And the reunification of your mind back into a completely loving frequency is going to dissolve the need for the separated body and take you back home. And home does not mean you sit around doing nothing. Home is a higher frequency place where you will be assigned higher frequency assignments. One of the assignments that we have as a collective of higher frequency beings is to assist those of you in lower frequencies up the ladder to a place where we can make contact and continue that instruction and loving guidance. That is our higher frequency experience. So we want you to love this journey. We want you to enjoy yourselves here. We want you to know that you do not need to suffer. And if you are in a body, know that there is an aspect of your mind that still needs to be in a body for some reason. Your idols are not dissolved yet. So if you are in a body and you are frustrated with it, ask yourself, what is it that I still worship in the physical material world? What is it that I'm chasing after in the physical material world? What is it that I still value in the physical material world? It may even be your body. It may be that you use your body to get things. It may be that your beauty or your strength or your muscles or your curves are used as bait to get things in your life. You are going to have a difficult relationship with your body over time if that is how you use it. But if you use your body as a communication device for higher frequency teachings, the body will fade away, not in physical terms necessarily, but it will become less important to you. And in that fading away and in that alignment with higher frequencies, it will now begin to reflect those higher frequencies because the body in and of itself will shift and change according to the vibe of the vital life force that is contained within it. So if you don't have a very good relationship with your body, or you're having difficulties with your body, raise your frequency and ask yourself, where am I down in the battleground? Where am I down in the physical material world all the time? Am I obsessed with money? Am I obsessed with beauty? Am I obsessed with prestige through attractiveness? Ask yourself where you use the body, how you use the body, and what you perceive the body is for. This will really, really help you come to understand that the use of the body can be changed drastically by the frequency inhabiting the body. We are Ananda. We are your guides and teachers, and we are happy to have these conversations with you. We will speak to you again soon. All right, lovely people. That's our time for today. This recording won't be up on the website for a couple of days. I've got to go to the web people and get some instruction once again on how to do that. I seem to have forgotten. I'm going to do another live stream next Sunday to catch up for my 3 or 4 weeks off here through travel and retreats. So I will be sending an email out in the next couple of days, and hopefully most of you will get it. Thank you all for joining us. Bye.